what a lot of new advertisers do is they jump straight in the deep end. They've launched a new apparel brand, for example, and they're like, right, so you're going to go and compete. You're a brand new advertiser against like Nike and Adidas, and like that's like not playing tennis and then entering Wimbledon. You have no chance unless you are unbelievably exceptional at this and a complete natural. You have no chance. So I think that's the way of thinking about it. It's like, I need to play in a market that I can win. There are loads of those markets out there. A lot of them are very lucrative, but they're small to begin with. Then you develop the skill, you get better at it, and you can step up markets.
Ben, hi. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Good to finally talk after our delay.
Yes, I know it's a little bit later than expected because your appendix interfered, but we're here now. Do you just want to get started with maybe just a little intro about yourself, so who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive in and start talking about the world of Facebook ads.
Yeah, sure. So for anyone that does know me, not that that's a big audience, but they know me as probably a Facebook ads expert. So I started a specialist Facebook advertising agency just over 7 years ago, and I've created a lot of content around Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising. In the last year or so, expanded to Google advertising as well. So that's my thing, really. I've got a specialist digital advertising agency now. We create, manage, and optimize campaigns for clients, and those platforms are changing all the time. And I create YouTube videos and other pieces of content, letting people know and things like that about what the changes are, what's going on, how to get strategy, and things along those lines.
You talk about not many people perhaps knowing you, but you have got it must be nearly 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. So it's not a bad audience.
It's not bad for the niche, There are YouTube channels out there with millions of subscribers, but it's like, how many people actually run ads on these platforms at any one time? It's I'm never going to get 10 million subscribers, but it's done well for my business, and I enjoy it and things like that. But it's not. I never get recognised walking down the street, for example.
No, not Gary V yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You mentioned a lot of things changing. I thought that would maybe be a good place to start, because even for people that have delved into Facebook ads, it feels like, watching your channel, it feels like there's just constantly things changing, and some of those are just small features. But I thought it'd be good to just talk about, over the last couple of years, what big changes have happened that people should probably take note of.
Yes, I mean, if we do the last 2 years, so just over 2 years ago, obviously it was the iOS 14.5. So people have probably heard, even if they're not into that world specifically, of what Apple did. They introduced these new rules that made it much harder for companies like Meta, Google, etc., to be able to track what people do once they click on an ad, come through to that business's website on an iOS device, so iPhones and iPads and things like that. So that was a really big change, and that really affected tracking, and it started to change the way that Meta approached the platform. So they previously were heading in a direction of giving advertiser tons of information, tons of control, getting really, really specific with who we were able to target and things like that. And since then, they've been pulling that back. So they've been taking more and more of that stuff away from the advertiser. It's still being done by the platform, but what we're having to do as advertisers is trust the platform more and more around things like targeting. So over those couple of years, we've had a lot more people recommend open targeting and see the best results with open targeting. So just not getting specific at all with who you're targeting, just we'll advertise to everyone and we'll let Meta's algorithm figure it out. A lot of that stuff has been going on. I think what that's meant is that the setting side of things, the targeting side of things, whilst important, it's not really a place where you can gain a massive competitive advantage anymore. So if you want to gain a competitive advantage, which you need to do to get the best results, there's only ever going to be a few winners in all the niches of things being sold in any advertising platform. And if you want that competitive advantage, it really comes down to your offer and your ad creative. Those are the parts that your customers see, or your prospects that you want to become customers see. Those are the things that are going to convince them whether to click, whether to buy, whether to become a lead or not. And that's where advertisers really need to focus their efforts now. Whereas definitely 4 or 5 years ago, people were putting out fairly basic ads and trying to win with the latest setting or targeting feature. Those things are still important. Like, I talk about that in my YouTube content because you want to get that stuff right. But really, the game-changing campaigns where you just see a business explode is because they've nailed the offer and they've got really engaging ad creative.
I remember you talking on one of your videos about this, about how targeting isn't really, especially today, as important as people think it is. Do you think it's something that people don't really have to worry about? They can, as long as they're, in a broad sense, getting the audience right? Or do you think it's still important, just not as important as those other things?
What I would say around targeting is it's important to not mess it up. So provided you don't get it really wrong, you're probably going to be okay. So if, for example, you end up targeting an audience that's really small, that's a big issue. That's going to ruin your campaign. If you completely miss the boat on something, so you want to target a lookalike audience, but you've also added in some detailed targeting and it's just all very confused, or you've excluded a really big proportion of your audience thinking that you want to be able to test certain things. Those sorts of things are going to just wreck your campaign. But provided you don't make big mistakes like that, you're probably okay. I get comments still from a lot of people saying things like, well, I'm just not reaching my right target audience. I've tested 8 different targeting options. I'm just not finding the right people. I think that's very unlikely, particularly if one of those tests is just open targeting. And if you just go into Ads Manager and you search for terms that are related to your products and services and you target those interests, you are going to be reaching the right people for the most part. Where people think it's the targeting and they're going wrong is what I talked about. It's the other elements of the campaign. It's actually, people can find your product for 20% less on Amazon and it gets delivered tomorrow and they know that brand and they trust it. That's why your campaign's not working, not because you haven't reached the right people.
Yeah, got you. That makes sense. It would be good to talk a little bit about the strategy side of things, because I've been there, I've spoken to so many people and where they're not really sure where to start and they just kind of wing it a little bit sometimes. And, they might advertise a lead magnet and just throw out a video or a couple of ad creatives to, visuals to test against each other. You're a bit more kind of, obviously having an agency, you're a bit more purpose driven and a bit more strategy focused. And you talk a lot about things like omnipresence strategy and maybe running that alongside, conversion campaigns and things like that. So it'd be good to dive into that a bit more, because a lot of people listening probably don't know what that is.
Yeah. So strategy is really important. It's the first thing you need to decide. If you get that wrong, it doesn't matter how good the rest of the stuff is. It's not going to work right. So I talk about it quite a lot and it's really important. I think that that's really benefited me as a content creator in this space, that I have an agency. We've worked with hundreds of clients, all in different, we're not niche specific, all in different industries. So I'm never going to recommend a one size fits all strategy. And that's really, really important. That's the first thing for people to learn, is that there's not one thing that works for everyone with, say, Facebook advertising. You need to customize your approach to the platform based on what you sell, the price point, the boxes that need to be ticked for your prospect to be ready to purchase from you, become a lead, etc. That's a place where a lot of people go wrong. And I hear conversations where someone will say, they'll be a business owner and they'll have a friend of theirs that, say, run a Facebook ad campaign, it worked really well, and they try and replicate what their friend did, but they have a completely different business. You go, well, that's never going to work for you. It works for your friend, but your friend's got a cafe and you've got an accounting firm. Like, these are very different things. You need to do things differently. So just to touch on those two sort of strategies that we use a lot, omnipresent content strategy is designed for businesses that need to demonstrate expertise and they need to develop a relationship with the prospect before they're ready to buy. So you think a lot of service businesses are in this situation. I would call them expertise-based service providers. You don't need to demonstrate your expertise and deliver value to wash someone's car. No expertise required there. But nearly all the B2B services, a lot of higher end B2C services, even things you're going to do for people around your home. You want to know that the plumber that you've just hired knows what he's doing, that sort of thing. Those businesses use omnipresent content and it works really well for them. So with omnipresent content, what we're trying to do is we're taking a relatively small group of people. It could be people in your local area, if you're a local business. It could be warm audiences, so people who've interacted with your business before, depending on where you're at with your brand. And what we're doing is we're forcing ad impressions to a small group of people again and again and again And we're ticking a number of boxes. So let's say I was to use this strategy to my warm audience, trying to convince them to use our Facebook advertising done for you services, which is a good example of expertise-based services where this works well. We'd be setting up an awareness campaign or a reach campaign, and we'd be trying to put 2 ads in front of every person per day for the foreseeable till they're ready to purchase from us. And these ads would be different ads, and they tick a number of boxes. So some would be value, just showing them how to do stuff that we know they want to know how to do, that we know that they don't know. Some would be things like client testimonials. We would have in there ads that explain how our service works, so people more familiar with steps A, B, C, D. All those various things that someone who's thinking about making a purchase with a business, particularly if it's an expertise-based service business, it's going to be in the thousands, tens of thousands, sometimes more. They're really going to think about this. They're probably quite nervous about the process. So we want to really demonstrate all these things, that we know what we're doing, that we've got results for people like them before. And that's how that's set up. Now, that sort of strategy absolutely won't work for a business that's selling a £20 e-commerce product, because forcing all those ad impressions is expensive. Per person, you're going to end up paying quite a lot to advertise to them, but it's worth it if they then sign a 20 grand, house remodeling, whatever. They put a new kitchen in or something like that. Then okay, we can afford to advertise to that person quite a lot. On the other side of things, if you are advertising that £20 e-commerce product or something close to that, you're going to want to go with a direct offer strategy. So it's going to be a conversion campaign, in that scenario usually a sales campaign, and you're going to be wanting to put that directly in front of your customers, trying to convince them to buy right now. You can't afford to keep advertising to the same people again and again and again. You want to present something that's so appealing they go, I really want to grab that. And you could apply, I've used a £20 e-commerce product, but you could apply the same logic to, a non-expertise based service, a local business. A lot of those businesses are going to tick the same box, where the barrier to entry for someone to buy it's quite low. Will I go down there and eat at that restaurant? This is quite a low barrier to entry thing. It's not a big decision like, am I going to hire this person to do me a new roof on my house, or am I going to hire this person to restructure the financing in my medium-sized business? So there needs to be a really different approach depending on what you advertise. Now, of course, there are businesses that fall sort of in between those two layers, and you could use both alongside each other. Rely on omnipresent content for a more long-term strategy, the more direct option for a short-term strategy. So if we think about the accounting firm, for example, you might run a direct campaign just being like, look, we'll do a free audit of your account, see where you might be able to save on tax, for example. And that could be a really direct campaign where the idea is just to get them to book a free consultation. And you could run that alongside the more long-term omnipresent, where you're really trying to get value and you want to convince those people to take all your services. We'll run your payroll, we'll do your accounts, we'll do your tax planning, we'll restructure your financing, all that sort of stuff. So that's sort of some of the ways that I might think about this stuff.
So what if, maybe let's think of something like a SaaS product, or maybe even an e-commerce product that has a lot of repeat buy or something like that, or even subscription-based e-commerce. If it's still a lower price point, is it worth running this anyway alongside conversion campaigns, or does it just get too expensive, do you think?
Most of the time, it's going to get too expensive. And what I would be looking to do with those sorts of businesses instead would be run the direct campaigns and then potentially run like a referral encouraging campaign, depending on what you offer. So having those multiple touch points on people that have bought to get them to buy again, absolutely. But we would do that with more direct campaigns. But trying to get that one step further, because particularly with a lot of e-commerce businesses that offer relatively low value products, the way to make those incredibly profitable is to sell something that's so good that everyone that buys recommends it to a couple of other people, and you're using the campaign to really get going, and you can afford to pay a lot per customer if you know that you're going to get those referrals and recommendations. And you can actually encourage that. We all know the businesses where you buy something or you sign up to a software or a gym membership or something like that, and if you refer a friend, you get 20% off the next month and all that sort of stuff, right? So those are things that we would typically do. With a SaaS company, it's going to depend on the price point, whether we're going to go with a full omnipresent content or sometimes something a little bit in between, more of a direct approach. But we're not trying to just make sure that we advertise, twice per day to each individual for the next 6 months, because that's really going to add up. We might tone it down a bit. But it depends on the SaaS product, right? If it's a $19 a month subscription, you can't really do that. If it's $300 a month, then sure, you can.
What if it's a range? So it starts at 19 and goes up to 300, for example. What would you do? Would you look at like an average order value or something?
If it was one of those where we thought we could progress people from 19 to the 300, then what we'd probably do is we'd run an omnipresent content campaign to the people that are at the $19 price point already. So they'd already bought, and that would be a relatively small audience usually that, yes, you're going to pay quite a bit advertised to each individual because you're doing it so many times, but there's just not tons of them. So the total bill is not going to be that much. And if we thought we could progress them to that next level, then yeah, that's how we would grab that. You'd emphasize the benefits of the next level, what the great stuff is, customer testimonials, all the same thing. But just knowing who you're speaking to, the people who've got this, and you're trying to ascend them up to the higher value product.
What sort of budget do you think people, like at a minimum, would need to put into these? Because I think you break these into like 10 ad sets or something, don't you?
Yeah, so with an omnipresent content campaign, you're looking at $1 or £1 per day per ad set. So at absolute minimum, you're talking, yeah, you could go with 8 ad sets at absolute minimum. So I would say $8 a day would be the smallest amount I would ever spend on an omnipresent content campaign.
Yeah. I can't help thinking this would be, assuming you're not thinking about conversions and you're not too worried about your ROI, but could this be really good for personal branding?
Yeah. I think that's a really good case study. Is personal branding. I've used it a lot, and what you end up doing with an ad campaign like this is you're effectively fast tracking the similar sort of experience that someone would experience with a personal brand if, you know, they built a large organic following on Instagram or they have a YouTube channel or something like that, right? It's the thing that builds the personal brand is having people exposed to what it is that you're putting out there again and again and again and again, and it providing value or entertainment or whatever your personal brand happens to be, right? So with an ad, you can force that. Now, I would say that the barrier to entry in terms of making sure you help people is probably a bit more important because it's an ad, so people are a little bit more skeptical than if they're finding the content organically. But with that said, you can guarantee the impressions. Whereas if you're trying to put something out there organically, particularly if you have new accounts, new social accounts, that's really difficult to gain any traction. So it definitely can help build a personal brand. And often when we are advertising like an expertise-based service business, it's a lot easier if there is a name attached. It doesn't have to be someone that's like famous. It could just be someone that's got a name within that industry. It makes a huge, huge difference. So yeah, I'm a big fan of doing it for people who want to build personal brands. And I'm a big fan of building personal brands as a way to generate business. I've had a lot of success with it. And I know a lot of other people that have as well.
Have you got any advice for, you mentioned the difference between ads and organic, but obviously we've all been there. We see an ad, a video ad, we know it's an ad. They start talking and it just, as soon as they start talking, it feels like an ad. Yeah. So we go next because we don't want to watch a video ad. Have you kind of found any ways to get around that, or just to start a video and try and capture their attention and make them realize actually this is going to be a helpful video? Because sometimes it can be difficult, can't it? I've skipped past ad within milliseconds when I've known it's a video ad.
Yeah. So I think you have to decide what it is that you're looking to do with your ad. If you are looking to build an audience and deliver value and develop that relationship, then I would absolutely treat it in terms of the creation of the creative the same as I would with organic. It's going to be a very similar approach. We want to hook the viewer in with something. We want to deliver value. Yes, we're going to pitch whatever we're going to pitch in the video, but like I do that with my my YouTube videos, for example. They've all got a pitch for my services or something like that in them, even though that's organic stuff. So they are going to be treated from a content creation standpoint very, very similarly. And I think that's something that's happened. The best advertisers treat it that way. A lot of advertisers in the past have thought, well, this is an ad, it's guaranteed to be seen. I don't need to put anywhere near as much effort into it as I do with my organic content. I think that's been a mistake. They've missed out there. So putting more effort into it, But what you can do with ads that you can't do with organic content for the most part is you can literally just advertise something. You can just say, here's what we have to offer. Are you interested? And the vast majority of people aren't going to be, and that's absolutely fine. If that offer is good enough for the people that it's relevant for, it'll grab them and they'll go, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I've been looking for. I didn't know about that. Great. Click buy. Or, yes, I really want to hire a company just like that. I wondered if that exists. Yes, I'm going to give them a call. So you could do that with an ad and be very direct, and that's absolutely fine. But if you do want to build that audience, then I would treat it like organic content and the same thing.
With the omnipresent videos, would you, even for the value ones, would you always pitch in them, or would you just treat the value ones as value and just rely on them seeing the other ones and recognizing you to then do the pitching?
Yeah, we wouldn't always pitch, no. In fact, I would say most of the time we wouldn't. So we typically have 4 categories of ads in an omnipresent content campaign. I would call it like an ad stack. So let's say there's 12 different ads in there. There's going to be 4 different types, might be 3 of each. And it's going to be value, demonstration, which is showing how our product or service works, what the steps, client testimonials and customer testimonials and feedback and reviews and things like that. And then specific CTA ads. So we're going to have ads that are, if you're interested, I know you've seen some of my stuff, click through here, book a call with the team.
Would you make it clear that they've probably seen some of your stuff, or would you just pitch it?
It depends on the market. Some markets are absolutely fine with that. Tech savvy, younger markets, like, yeah, we know you track us and all that jazz. They don't care. Other markets, that would be like a big no-no. That would put them off. They wouldn't like that. If you're after like an older demographic or like a non-tech savvy demographic, then we would really avoid that. If in doubt, like don't make that explicit. Is the simple way of doing it. But you can just say, like, they will have seen your stuff because of how you set it up. So you can say, if you're interested, we've got a so-and-so discount on right now, last the end of the month. So if you have been thinking about this, then go ahead and, sign up here. In the value add specifically, sometimes we'll include a CTA, sometimes we won't. It'll often depend on the length and if it just fits naturally, depending on the topic of what's being talked about.
Yeah, that makes sense. And with the testimonial ones, would you get customers to record videos and
if
just
we can,
advertise those?
Yeah, that's great. If we can do that, we don't always have that. Clients aren't always able to get that. In which case, we'll use written testimonials as well. And sometimes you can use like a series of written reviews, let's say, in a very quick little slideshow video that just demonstrates this stuff. So there's a few different ways of going about doing that. But the best option is going to be a compilation video ad with videos from a number of different clients where you're jumping between them to hold people's attention, and have those previous clients be very similar demographically to the people that you're trying to market to. Because what you want the prospects to do is go, oh, this company got great results for this person. This person seems like they're just like me. They're the same age. They're also a mum of 3, whatever. Great, I'm going to buy.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I wanted to touch on a few different ad types, because I know I heard on one of your videos you were saying in-app experiences are kind of back with a bang, really. They're working really well. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that, and should people try that and use it?
Yeah, so I think don't try and outsmart a lot of what Meta recommends. So there's sort of 2 types of recommendations that Meta makes as a company. One that benefits you as an advertiser, which is, I would say, probably most of them. And those are great. And you want to go ahead and use those, obviously. They want us to get better results as advertisers, because then we stick on the platform, we spend more, we're their customers. They do also have some recommendations that you have to be wary of, where they're just trying to get you to spend more money. So a lot of the information around the learning phase, for example, you need 50 conversions a week to get out of the learning phase. If you quadruple your budget, you'll probably get 50 conversions a week. It's like, well, that's pretty self-serving for Meta. They're just trying to convince you to quadruple your budget. It's a fantastic marketing trick for them, but it's something you need to be aware of. When what they're recommending is not something that directly gets you to increase your budget today, it's nearly always a good recommendation. So, for example, if you have an app, use the app features to market it. Use the in-app, use the app installs campaign objective, and go with the various options within that. Just like if you want sales, go with sales. If you want leads, go with leads. And generally following their recommendations, as long as it's not something that's just a direct budget increase, is the right way to go, because they want us to get better results and they've got all the data in the world. So anything app related, you want to just go with the app features and what they recommend, basically.
The leads one is an interesting one, because I think what a lot of people would normally do is, I've got a lead magnet of some sort, I'm going to send someone to a landing page. Obviously, that's off platform. Facebook might not, rather you wouldn't do that. I'm going to send someone to to a landing page, collect their email. They then get emailed the lead magnet. But although Facebook would like you to use, the lead campaigns, it works a bit differently. Does it work well with lead magnets, or is it only really for pure email collection?
You can obviously use instant forms where they stay on platform and deliver a lead magnet. They've recently added a view file option, so literally they can be delivered that lead magnet from all within platform, which is certainly what Meta would rather us do. And then you can gather their email address, and then you can integrate with a CRM. And depending on where in the world you're advertising, there are different privacy restrictions about what you can and can't do with that, or not just where you're advertising, but where your prospects are. If you use something like a double opt-in, then you could still give them the lead magnet that way. With that approach, you're typically going to see a lower cost per lead using the instant form as opposed to sending people to your website. If you send the people to your website, you're probably going to end up with slightly better quality, in that case, email subscribers. But honestly, I would say that in terms of lead magnet campaigns, we're using those less than we used to. We still use them, but just the specific lead magnet campaign to get an email opt-in to then obviously email market and get them to purchase, I would say we're using less than we used to. We're more going to favor the direct sales approach or go full omnipresent content. There are definitely use cases, and a great version of a lead magnet, for example, could be like a webinar that people sign up to. We still use that quite a bit, where you can still do the same thing, but they're getting just so much value in that webinar itself that it really helps progress the situation. But I think with email marketing is still obviously incredibly valuable, but I just think we don't get as many clients wanting that as we used to. I think a lot of businesses honestly are just terrified of all the privacy rules that are too complicated to understand, and they're like, I don't want to get all this data and then run into loads of difficulties and things like that. Some companies navigate it well, and email marketing is famously fantastic for the return on investment, given the costs involved. But just as an agency, it's just interesting to note that we're just not doing as much of that as we used to.
If you did have someone that did want that email marketing was an important element for them, would you be able to can you tie it in with their email software, or is it still quite separate?
No, depending on what they use. So most like CRMs now will integrate directly with Meta. So like any information that you gather from like an instant form could just be fed straight through.
I think the file thing is quite new. Did you mention that was new? The file
view file thing, where you can literally sign up. You could sign up for a lead magnet via an instant form, and then on that thank you page, click on the button view file and be given the lead magnet. Yeah, that's got to be, I don't know, 4 months old, something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I certainly don't remember that being there when I've done any of that before.
Yeah. It's fairly new, and like all new features, Meta rolls them out to different people in stages, which is a nightmare for a content creator, because every time I talk about a new feature, I have some people saying, "Oh, I've had this a month," and I have other people saying, "I don't have this yet." And I'm like, I know. It's in tranches, and people get it. It's like at some point I've got to try and be like, right, now is probably the right time to make a video about this. It's just the way it is.
And if email collection was important to someone, do you think you'd sway more towards the in-app experience than sending them to a landing page, for example?
We'd almost certainly test both. If they didn't have like a great website or something, like a reason to avoid it, then sure, we would go with the keeping them in-app. But otherwise we test both. And I get that question quite a lot, and I'm like, it really does depend on the business. Some see better results still sending people to their website, and this is like not just with lead magnets, but just generating leads in general. Others see better results, instant forms.
Awesome. I wanted to chat a little bit about beginners, really, because I hear from a lot of people saying, I'm trying Facebook ads, it's not really working for me. They end up giving up. What are the most common issues you see when people are trying to do it themselves? They're really struggling. They're just, maybe they're not getting conversions, and maybe it's some of the things like you mentioned, like the ad creative or something like that. But I do see a lot of people pumping a bit of budget in, not working for them. They've spent a few £100 maybe, they give up, and it happens a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does all the time. So I think the biggest issue is around market selection and the mindset towards the platform. So I use this analogy, and I think it's quite a good one. a lot of people do exactly what you say. They will jump into Facebook ads, they will spend a couple £100, it won't work, and they'll declare often, this doesn't work, and they'll leave. For me, that is like someone who's never played tennis before, going along to their local tennis club, entering into local tournament, barely winning a point, and deciding that tennis doesn't work. Now, no one, like if your friend did that, was like, oh, tennis doesn't work, you'd be like, you would know that that was ridiculous. You'd say, what do you mean tennis doesn't work? No, you're just not good enough at it yet. You just went to play in a local tournament against people who've been playing their whole lives. Like, of course, they're going to smash you. It's very similar with these online advertising platforms, but people don't think about it like this. It is a skill that absolutely needs to be learned. And the only people that get really good results with Facebook and Instagram ads are the best in their market. So that can sound really daunting to people, and it should be to some extent, but here's where it gets a lot easier or a lot more manageable. You get to pick the market that you compete in. So I live in Cheltenham, right? If I was to, let's say I was brand new to Facebook advertising and I wanted to run Facebook ads for a patio cleaning business, right? How many other patio cleaning businesses are there in Cheltenham, town of about 100,000 people? I don't know, not that many. How many of them are running Facebook ads? Maybe none, maybe one or two. So that market is really easy to win. You could watch my videos for a day and probably have enough knowledge to absolutely dominate that market and run the best Facebook ads for a patio cleaning business in that local area where there are only two other businesses, let's say, advertising on Facebook, maybe none. Okay, really easy to do. And that's absolutely where I would encourage people to start is whatever it is that you offer, find a way to really niche that down and go after, I'm going to sell, I'm not going to try and sell a dog training program. I'm going to sell a program for pugs when they are the first week after you get them as a newborn puppy, and it's pug specific, and you're like, right, okay, you're not competing against 1,000 other advertisers trying to sell dog training courses. You're now competing against the 4 people that are, what do you do in your first week when you get a pug home, a pug puppy home, let's say. So that's a huge part of it is you start with something that you can do. So like we go back to tennis analogy, you start by playing against other beginners and then you get good enough to beat them. And then you might enter in a local tournament where, there's only a few people there and you get good at that. And then you go and compete in a tournament for the county that you live in. And then you go and compete in a national tournament. And then you can step up the levels. What a lot of new advertisers do is they jump straight in the deep end. They've launched a new apparel brand, for example. And they're like, right, so you're going to go and compete. You're a brand new advertiser against like Nike and Adidas, and like that's like not playing tennis and then entering Wimbledon. You have no chance unless you are unbelievably exceptional at this and a complete natural. You have no chance. So I think that's the way of thinking about it. It's like I need to play in a market that I can win. There are loads of those markets out there. A lot of them are very lucrative, but they're small to begin with. Then you develop the skill, you get better at it, and you can step up markets. So I think that's where so many people go wrong, is just the mindset and market selection.
Going with that example, like the apparel example, let's say someone's stumbled into a new job. They've got to do Facebook ads for an apparel brand. At the moment, they're looking really broad. They're competing with, like you say, Adidas, Gymshark, people like that.
Yeah.
Would you recommend they look at a certain small group of people and just focus on them?
Yeah,
try and advertise
definitely.
That market.
Absolutely. And that doesn't necessarily need to be in terms of small group of people in terms of how you set up your ad campaign from a targeting standpoint. Like you can't, for example, offer the same product with the same marketing messaging to just a really small group of people and hope it will work. That won't work. They're still seeing Gymshark's ads and whatever, right? What you would need to do is position that product as serving a very specific group of people. Okay. So like think, okay, who uses these products? And where's like an edge use case that we can specifically speak to in our marketing messaging, right? So I don't know, think of something really, really specific. So you could have, let's say, you're in a sports apparel business and like, okay, we're going to sell this. We know that female rugby players use this. Like female rugby players in the UK, for example, they won't receive ads that talk about the clothing being specifically for female rugby players. They'll just see ads that are for people who want to exercise, and that you can use these for sport and all that sort of stuff. But if you put in your ad copy, in your imagery, that these are great for female rugby players, that's how you could gain traction, because your ad will stand out from all the others, and that's a way to differentiate yourself from the big brand. And then people who are female rugby players look at that and they go, oh, okay, yeah, I've been thinking about, I need a new pair of like shorts underneath or whatever. I'll go ahead and grab that. That's how you'd look to do it.
Do you think you'd need to focus your other marketing and like your website and things like that around that audience then? Or do you think you can just focus the marketing, like the Facebook ads and some marketing elements, some paid marketing elements around that? And then, they hit the website and it is just a clothing brand? Or do you think they need that consistency of they go to the website, oh, it's still for female rugby players?
I think you need some continuity there. So you don't need your whole website to be rebranded for that specific audience, but I would have a page that makes sense, that connects in. So they may come through, they come on a landing page, it's got that same marketing messaging, like this is for you, it works really well because of X, Y, and Z. Now, if they want to click around the rest of your website and see that there's all, that this sports apparel that it can work for all sorts of different markets, all sorts of different other people, and they want to buy other stuff, fine, that's great. But just have that one landing page, that first step, be somewhere where they can come through and go, okay, I can grab that product and have that connectivity. Otherwise, what you don't want is people to feel like they've clicked and they've been a bit tricked or they've landed on the wrong page. So you do want to have some nod to that. It could be as simple as duplicating your product page and just changing some of the copy on it, headlines and, product description maybe to say, oh, this is great, works great for rugby and that sort of thing.
I guess people would do specific product landing pages for that sort of thing, wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
I wanted to just touch on pages and groups just a little bit, because two things with this. One, you kind of hear a little bit out there that pages is back a bit and getting a bit more organic, but also groups is obviously still really powerful, but I think it's difficult to grow groups with ads. Or are there any kind of tactics around actually, no, there are ways you can grow that with advertising budget?
So that's interesting. So if I do the group part first, so I have a Facebook group. It's got just under 200,000 people in it. It's actually the largest one to do with Facebook advertisers. So if people want to know more about Facebook advertising, it's called the Facebook Ads Mastermind Group, and they can go and find that out. It is difficult to grow a group with direct ads. The way I had success when I was using ads to grow my group, now it grows by itself. But the way I was doing it was I was linking my Facebook page to my Facebook group, and then I was advertising my Facebook page to get page followers, which you can do using the engagement objective if you use the destination as your page. And then what you can do is you can invite people that have recently followed your page or liked your page to join your group. And I found that was it was almost like trying to get a cold audience to join a group was too big an ask. They're like, oh, there's going to be loads of notifications. But if you had that intermediary step, it was much easier for them to take that, okay, yeah, I've already liked his page and I can join his
Was
group.
that your personal brand page?
Yep.
Yeah, and then invite them to the Facebook Mastery group. Okay, cool. Yeah,
exactly that. Yeah, and then the group's got like the image at the top's got like my face on it, and there's continuity there, so it all makes sense, and I'm somewhat active in there. So that's how I would recommend people try with groups. Now you're not going to build a massive group doing that alone, but what you're hoping for is that you get that traction initially, and then it does well, and the engagement's good, so that when people are sort of organically looking for groups, it's there at the top, and they find it, and they can go ahead and and join. So that's how I would think about growing a group: is using the ads as like a like lighter fluid, let's say, to get it going, and then it can hopefully grow by itself. In terms of pages, what we are seeing is that there's a lot more, say, organic reach via Facebook Reels. That's been a really big development over the last 6 to 12 months, has been Facebook Reels. And actually, that's filtered into Meta's numbers as a company overall. So we can see that we don't have Q2 numbers yet, but obviously because, we're just at the end of it now. But Q1 numbers for Meta and for Facebook specifically, not just their family of apps, is that number of users have increased. Monthly users have increased. So the amount of people that active monthly users versus overall users has increased. Active daily users versus overall users has increased. So the usage on the site is up. There's more users, there's more usage, and we think that's very much Reels specific. So where we're seeing more organic traction, and I'm seeing this in my own content on Facebook, is is in Reels. So I think it's not necessarily that pages have changed, it's just that feature of it is a much bigger deal now.
Yeah, that makes sense. With your page, did you find it was quite expensive to grow the audience on your page, to advertise for that, or were there ways that you could bring the cost right down on that?
So initially, the easiest way to bring down the cost on that is just to expand the audience location. So to go with a global audience as opposed to, assuming that you're advertising from like an expensive country to advertise in, is to do that. And if you're happy to have a global audience, which I certainly was, because I know that people watch my YouTube videos from all over the world, and I know that people in my group from all over the world and stuff like that. That's a way to bring that down. If you're like a local business, let's say, and you're just wanting to get Facebook page followers within the local area to try and get them into a group like this, that's really going to get very expensive. It's just probably not a strategy I would recommend. There are other things like we've discussed that you can do instead, and I probably wouldn't be, I wouldn't set up a Facebook group for that local patio cleaning company, for example. No. It just doesn't really make sense, right? But if you can go like worldwide and you're trying to build a following and an audience, which are nearly always worldwide now, or at least nationwide, let's say, then I don't think it's prohibitively expensive. But it is a cost, It's like all forms of marketing, there's a cost to it, right? And so that needs to be factored in.
Awesome. We're nearly at time. I did want to ask you one other thing, which was unrelated to Facebook ads.
Sure.
And that is, how do you stay so consistent on YouTube? Because you seem to be like a machine on there. You're just constantly on there. Just be interesting to know how you do it.
Yeah, well, we discussed this before
as well.
We discussed before, even, having an appendectomy and having a few weeks out, my schedule, my video publishing schedule didn't change because I had a bank of videos all prepped and recorded. It's like, I see that as one of my absolute most important roles personally in my business. Like my two most important roles are to hire people and get that right, which, obviously I don't always do, but I try my best to do. And it's to consistently put out content. So it's like, it just does not get missed. If I'm going to go away on holiday, I get recorded in advance. It just does not get missed. Fortunately, in terms of how I'm able to do that without it taking up a huge amount of time, is I've created 500 videos now. So it's quite quick and easy for me to, like, I don't script out my videos. Like I just plan them out in like detailed bullets, record. And then the big part is I have a team of editors. And I send it to the editors and it all looks rubbish and it's me making loads of mistakes and they chop it all up and make it all very nice and put it out there for me. So I was very bad at this at the beginning as a business owner, was getting people to do things for me, a classic thing of doing it all myself. But through many years of consistently getting other people to do things and then it going much better and freeing up much more of my time, I've gotten a lot better at it. So so I have people in place to do it all, to create the thumbnails, edit it all up, all that sort of stuff.
I guess you block out time for video creation as well, do you?
Yeah. So I exactly. So I know that Mondays, Wednesdays, Friday mornings are going to be video recording if I need to. Like I don't have to do, so like this week, I'll do Wednesday and Friday. I didn't do Monday because I just didn't, we had plenty already. So that's typically how I look to do it. And then I've sort of set up my content creation process to be efficient. That's like quite important to me. So like I record in my office, which I'm sat in right now, and everything's like, you can't see it because it's the other side, but it's like I've got all the lights, they're just there, ready, like it just turn them on and go and all that sort of stuff. So it's all designed to be very efficient. I think that's important because I've seen a lot of people to dedicate an enormous amount of time and effort into like creating a brilliant video, but it took them all week and they're absolutely exhausted, and it's just not, that's not sustainable.
Awesome, Ben. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm glad you're over your appendix issues, or you're on the mend anyway. Where can people find out a bit more about you and follow you and get in touch?
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been really good to chat. In terms of finding out my stuff, heathmedia.co.uk is our agency website. So that's where you find out about our services. People are interested, want to find out more. Other places would be on like all social channels. It's a variation of my name, Ben Heath, and I'll pop up. And YouTube probably being the the primary one where you can see like longer form content. If you want to learn how to run Facebook ads, Google ads, yeah, search for my name and I'll pop up.
And I will just throw in, I highly recommend Ben's YouTube channel. Is awesome content on there, really easy to follow, really useful. So yeah, go and subscribe to that. Thanks a lot, Ben. Appreciate it.
Fab, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's been good to talk about Facebook ad stuff at a more specific level than I often get to speak about. You obviously, you're familiar with the platform and stuff, which has been fun.
Awesome.
Cool.
Cheers. Take care. Bye.